And we're back.
And we're back. Let's continue to break it down. We're going to go into the Colts next, who finished third place in the AFC South, and also behind some major injury coming from a budding superstar with Anthony Richardson. So I think we're going to start. Let's kick it off with the Anthony Richardson debate.
Yeah, I mean, Gardner Minshew's no longer here. His new backup is Joe Flacco. So let's talk about the Anthony Richardson debate. Is where you're taking him. The sample size is low, so we're going off of a small sample size and a potential. Where do you draw the line? Like, what quarterback are you willing to take him in front of and take a chance on? Because you're going to have to probably jump on a little bit earlier. And what round would you try and do that in?
I mean, there's very few quarterbacks that I'm taking above him. Let's just say that. I mean, it's the Josh Allen, some Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson. He's right around that Kyler Murray range for me. If he's there and Kyler's there, I'm taking Anthony Richardson. And I think that's my cutoff.
Okay.
C.J. Stroud above him. And then Anthony Richardson, I think, is the next guy for me.
So I'm in the same boat that I actually think people are drafting Kyler a little bit too low. I think Richardson with his potential, I almost am okay with CJ or Richardson because CJ doesn't run. And what he did in the pocket last year was amazing for a rookie season. And obviously we look for the sophomore year jumps, but his numbers and his efficiency were through the roof. And if he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, then CJ Stroud's going to do it again. That's the only thing that scares me. Richardson, I like, and I know I'm going to get him after C.J. Stroud. That's why I like him there.
So my argument on the C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson is that all things considered equal between the quarterback and the player themselves, right? The weapons are so much better.
Houston, 100%. But you're not. But the difference is Anthony Richardson is the weapon.
He is, but you also have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. And there are great weapons in Indianapolis.
Oh, yeah.
I expect a bigger jump from Indianapolis this year. And I think that they're going to jump Jacksonville into that division leader position. Mm-hmm. Now, what we saw from Anthony Richardson in the first 3 games was completely against last year from what me and you thought he was going to come in. We thought he was getting overdrafted. We thought the Colts.
Well, I thought he was being drafted too high. I thought the Colts drafted him too high in the NFL draft.
I'm saying not in fantasy. I'm talking about in the NFL when he got drafted. They're reaching on him. A low completion percentage in college. We thought he was unpolished, and at times he did look unpolished. But his ability outside the pocket and being able to move, he looked good as a passer. Everything that comes out of the locker room and the reports is that he's a true consummate professional. He's a guy that stays late. He arrives early. He's a leader. And those are the qualities that you'd love to see in a young quarterback. Now, I absolutely love him from a fantasy perspective because of the rushing upside, because he gives you that kind of Lamar, Josh Allen like type of running ability that you don't see from very many guys. But we saw last year what he could do with his arm too, and they have the weapons around him now between Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, where I really think, like, look what Minshew did last year with them. With lesser of a team, I think.
But I also think, I mean, the reports coming out of Oakland is Minshew's wowing the Raiders.
Of course, because
I think Minshew is going to be a career-long backup quarterback that, finds his way into starting roles due to injuries, but also will, in a quarterback controversy type of situation, could win it out. But to me, I like Anthony Richardson a lot. I'm willing to take a chance on him, but where you've got to draft him, I find myself pivoting from that quarterback position. I don't love him so much that I got to have him there. That's the hard part for me.
So that's I've taken a lot of Anthony Richardson, especially in best ball drafts.
Best ball I have, but I haven't done it in our regular mock drafts yet.
Yeah,
and he's been sitting there for me.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because where I've drafted in a lot of the mock drafts that I've done is kind of more towards the tail end of the draft. If I'm sitting there and I see a run on quarterbacks and he's available, and I'm already gotten established at like my running backs, I've already got two wide receivers. If I'm sitting here like the last mock draft we did, if I'm sitting here with 2 running backs, two wide receivers, and in the 5th round I'm seeing that Anthony Richardson's there, I'm probably taking him. Unless there's a guy that slipped.
Well, I have to say, here's a question. What you did and what I did, we took tight end in that 5th round because McBride and Kittle were still there. The question is, if you come up and it's one of the top tier tight ends in your rankings, Anthony Richardson, and you would know that Kyler Murray is going to be there on the swing for you, or on the next round, on the turnaround? Would you rather go tight end Kyler Murray, or would you take Richardson and then go for your next best on the board?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because I'd rather go the tight end Kyler Murray, or I'd rather go a top player that slipped Kyler Murray.
So in that last mock that we did, I didn't have an opportunity at Anthony Richardson, but let's just say I did. I was drafting on the 10 position, and I drafted George Kittle there. And then the swing around, I ended up drafting, I forget who else I drafted. But let's just say that Anthony Richardson's there. I'm okay with getting Anthony Richardson there and then getting Kyle Pitts 3 picks later. I'd be okay with that. Over Kittle and then completely overdrafting on Kyler.
Well, you would have only overdrafted by 8 picks because he went.
Yeah, but I mean,
8 picks later.
But but in that pick, I get Christian Kirk.
No, I agree. Listen, based on the team build, it matters there. But
right, so
I'm just saying,
I would have much rather had Anthony Richardson and Kyle Pitts than Kittle and Kyler Murray at the value that I had to get him.
I like Kyler Murray a little bit better, and not that 5th round is. I
like Kyler. Don't get me wrong. I like.
Oh,
Kyler.
I know we talked about it, but I'm just saying we'll talk about him in Arizona. I think this guy's going to finish. Has a chance to finish top 5 at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done it already, so that's the reason why I like him a little bit better. But it's only because I covet that 5th round so much because. You have a teardrop at tight ends. You have a wide receiver teardrop usually as well. There may be a running back that slipped down to you. And if you are all chips in on Anthony Richardson, you're not drafting the value anymore.
Yeah.
You're drafting the Anthony Richardson. And it's okay to draft if you like him, but know that you're not drafting value. At that point.
He's had a long offseason. He had surgery on the shoulder, on the throwing sholdder.
Everything's going to be fine with him.
Everything's going to be fine. I'm not concerned with his injury whatsoever. I think that Flacco is a great backup to have there for Richardson. I think there's a lot of good weapons there. So let's start talking about some of these weapons. Now, I don't think we need to waste a lot of time talking about Jonathan Taylor.
No,
I think the only thing I want to say about Jonathan Taylor is that he is in a position and has the potential to be a top 3 running back in fantasy. And I think he has that position because, again, the rushing ability that Anthony Richardson has. The same reason I like Derrick Henry in Baltimore. It's the hesitation from the linebackers and the absolute explosibility.
The RPO in the linebacker spot is just difficult.
But what I do want to talk about from the running back position, we don't need to waste time talking about Jonathan Taylor.
Well,
he is what he is.
The one thing I will say about Taylor, and I'll end it at this, is I agree with you. I think he finished top 4. I think McCaffrey, Saquon, him, and then you could throw in any mix of Bijan, Josh Jacobs, any of these guys who have a role. I think even Jahmyr Gibbs has a chance based on. If Brees. Well, actually, yeah, Brees. Actually, Brees rounds out my top 4. But you could see that it could be interchangeable, and he's
McCaffrey,
right
Brees,
there.
Taylor's that next. That third.
I have Saquon as my 3.
Yeah, well,
listen, he's not a Giant anymore, so I hate to say it, but let's talk about.
I do want to talk about
the backup
running back for Jonathan Taylor, because we've seen Jonathan Taylor in the past get injured and miss a couple of games here or there, and whatever backup's been there has really taken over, whether it was Naheem Hines, whether it was Zach Moss, whoever's come in there
is successful.
To the point where
even without Anthony Richardson though too. I mean,
right.
Look at Zach Moss.
Right. To the point where Zach Moss goes and gets a great contract because of a handful of games that he had because of Jonathan Taylor's injury.
Yep.
So who's the guy? Is it Trey Sermon? Is it Evan Hull? That's really.
Well, Hull's coming off an injury.
Right.
And Sermon has already been talked about and praised in preseason, but we all know what preseason talks about. You got to have your ear to the ground with this stuff, though, because preseason talk about Kyron Williams was there, and nobody wanted to listen to it last year until everybody saw what he could do, and Cam Akers was out the door, and everybody's running to the waiver wire to get him. Same thing, Puka Nacua was talked about all preseason, that this guy's got good stuff, and nobody either drafted him or drafted him super late, and those who did, good for you. But people missed out on those guys because they didn't want to listen to that. Now, Trey Sermon, is he going to have a role? Jonathan Taylor's a 3-down back. We know that. But something happens to Taylor, this is the guy. If you own Taylor, you want to know who you're getting there. And I think Sermon has got the ability to be a little bit more of a Taylor type of back than that. I don't think San Francisco gave him a shot.
This is the tough part with. I mean, just any of these running backs, they get hurt. I'm not a huge believer in getting handcuffs for your own guys. I do like getting handcuffs for other people's guys if I miss out.
Yes,
on
I love doing that.
I love doing that. Like go and take Christian McCaffrey 1 overall. I'll go grab Elijah Mitchell 15 rounds later. I'll be okay with that. But with this, I think there's such a battle between the 2 and the 3. I do think Evan Hall showed enough promise last year where I think he might make an impact there. Trey Sermon, I think, is going to start the season as number 2. And I think, keep your ear to the ground. Listen to the don't listen to the mainstream guys. Listen to the actual reporter for the team. So for the Colts,
beat writers.
The beat writers. Yeah. Those are the guys you really want to talk about, or you want to really listen to for each one of these teams, especially for these backup roles. Where it's like, all right, this guy's impressed in camp. Everything that we've heard is that Trey Sermon's impressed in camp. Trey Sermon has shown flashes when he was in San Francisco. I do think that if he gets some opportunity there, especially if there's a Jonathan Taylor injury, that he could be effective here, because the identity for this team is running the football first. And those are the handcuffs that I like the best. Well, I don't want to handcuff on a team that throws the ball.
Yeah. So, here's the one thing I want to say about handcuffs, and let's move to receivers, because we're talking about backup to Jonathan Taylor. God forbid an injury, and I hope not that, because I do like Taylor as a running back.
But this is make it or break it. I mean, like the guys who drafted Jerome Ford as a handcuff last year were extremely successful because
and he took you to the playoffs.
Yeah. Week 1 last year, we lose Nick Chubb.
We talked about Kyron Williams. Same thing. He was a backup going to the season,
right?
Technically on the depth chart,
right? Exactly.
But here's the thing about Trey Sermon. Or handcuffing. The time I like to handcuff is
not in bed.
Yeah, no. I like to have one arm free. If you're handcuffing a guy, the time I like to do it with my own running back, it's if I go hero running back. And the only reason I like this is because you put all your chips in on that one guy, say it's Taylor in that first round, and then you don't draft a guy for 5 rounds, and then you're picking up a bunch of running backs. I want to handcuff that Taylor in case I lose in my investment.
Yes.
That's where I like to handcuff. But otherwise, I'm on the same boat as you.
My argument on this one is we don't really know who the true backup is, right? So it's not like.
And what I'm saying, we'll know more towards the end of camp. But I'm putting my chips in the Trey Sermon. If I was in that role, I'd be handcuffing Sermon in one of the last picks of my draft. If I pick Taylor as a hero running back, but if I do sure. running back, or 2 running backs within the first 4 picks, I'm probably not handcuffing anybody.
Sermon. I don't need to. But we'll move on to the wide receivers here because I think there's some really interesting pieces here. Now, I think at this point, Michael Pittman can be listed as like one of my top receivers in this draft and in this year.
Mm-hmm. I want him on my team.
I absolutely love Michael Pittman. I think that everyone is talking. I talked to you a couple weeks ago about this. Everyone talks about Michael Pittman on the volume that he had with Minshew, and then he was hyper-targeted with Minshew. But he was hyper-targeted with Anthony Richardson in the first 3 games. I think in the first 3 games he had 34 targets and 27 receptions with Anthony Richardson, including 200-yard games and a game with 2 touchdowns. So I think there's a lot of false narrative that's being pushed towards away from him. I'm being like, oh well, Anthony Richardson is not going to be able to sustain him. He wasn't being hyper-targeted. He is the best receiver on that team, and they just locked him up for 4 more years. Mm-hmm. He is the mold of Mike Evans. Like those two are kind of very, very similar style receivers. They're big body possession receivers that can also spread the field deep. So I love having Pittman. I think he is my best. I would say he is my best value wide receiver in this class in this year.
Yeah, because you're getting a number one that's going to have a massive target share, massive touchdown potential, and you're drafting him in the
fourth or
fifth round, depending upon where you're drafting. Yeah, I agree. I think he should be right up there in that 3rd round bunch of receivers. Why Waddle is being taken over him sometimes, it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. I mean, like Ayuk is getting taken over him.
Well, you can argue.
I could argue.
You could argue that, but
I can also make the argument that he's better than Drake London. That he's better than Ayuk.
I'm taking him over Drake London every single day. Ayuk and him, depending upon if they're both neck and neck, it depends. Like then,
and he's done it consistently over the last couple of years. This is not a fluke year where he's had he's broken out for a big touch. I will say the one thing that's down for him is the touchdowns. He's not a 10 touchdown guy.
But who's to say he can't be with Anthony Richardson?
That's what
we
I'm
just
saying.
don't know.
It's like, we don't know.
But there was an addition of A.D. Mitchell, who
and
is
Josh Downs is coming into his second year.
Well, so Downs is going to probably end up playing slot.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, which I think he's going to be better off the slot. I think he's going to be a better receiver out the slot. You have A.D. Mitchell out wide or Alec Pierce, because right now they're in a battle for that number 3 wide receiver position. And I think A.D. Mitchell's a better athlete. I mean, Alec Pierce is a really good route runner, and he showed promise last year. But I think A.D. Mitchell's a better athlete overall. And but Downs is still another one, too, that you can get super late. That we saw what he did in games last year. He was like Tank Dell-esque.
He was. And then we go into last year's preseason where this was a guy I absolutely loved coming into the season. Any guy of that frame that has that kind of route running ability, who throws up those kind of numbers in college. This guy wasn't a 6'2" receiver like A.D. Mitchell was. He's not a physical receiver. He's 5'9". Mm-hmm. He's a $160, like Tank Dell.
Like Tank Dell.
But he also was going back-to-back seasons of 1,100 yards and 10-plus touchdowns receiving in college.
Yeah.
He put up the numbers in college to show that he's skilled enough to get open against any type of corner.
Well, he showed it last year.
And then he showed it last year, where he had these explosive games. I think having another year of – and he didn't really emerge until week 4, week 5, week 6. So we never really saw him and his chemistry with Anthony Richardson.
But I guarantee you see a snap difference too by the time he got 4, 5, 6, week 7 and 2 as well. So I think the combination of the injury plus his snaps not being so high in the first couple games.
No, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It's like we really haven't seen the true mold of what he can be with Anthony Richardson. I still really like him. I've seen A.D. Mitchell getting drafted above him a lot. And I get it. Because I think the assumption is that he's not going to be a touchdown machine and that A.D. Mitchell is going to be a red zone target.
Yeah, red zone target.
However, when they're down the red zone, the first 3 options that they're going to be doing is Michael Pittman, Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
So if you're looking for the big play explosive ability, Josh Downs is the guy you want.
Yeah.
Outside of Pittman.
I'm in agreement with you. I draft him over A.D. Mitchell. In all my fantasies.
I like the value of Josh Downs 5 rounds later than A.D. Mitchell. And
which is late anyway, but yes.
Right, you're getting A.D. Mitchell in the 8th, 9th round, and you're probably getting Downs in the 12th or 13th round, which I absolutely love that value.
Yeah.
It's very similar to where I was able to get Tank Dell last year, where Josh Downs is another guy I was targeting.
People could get Nico Collins.
Nico Collins last year.
Yeah.
Where everyone slept on those guys, but I think if Anthony Richardson comes back and stays healthy, all 3 of these guys are going to have very productive seasons.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Josh Downs is the guy that I'm targeting if I don't get Pittman, and I'm targeting him late because I want a piece of this offense.
My goal is to push Michael Pittman's ADP up to the 3rd round. All right? If you want him, you're going to have to probably take him there.
Yeah, but I again, if I'm sitting there and Drake London is the highest one ADP on the board in front of me, I'm taking Michael Pittman.
Yeah. I'd take him over any of the – outside of Garrett, Puka, I think him and Cooper Kupp are probably the most disrespected top-end receivers.
Yeah, I agree.
Right now.
I agree.
So.
All right. Well,
that's Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break and we'll move on to our next team.